Assalamu alaikum. This lecture is for University of Education Law, Department of English. Course title is Pakistan Studies. Program name is PS English. Course code PAKS Tetra 1. The main teacher of this course is Dr. Ibrar Ahmed, and this is Anil Vikas Khan. In this lecture, we will discuss about the Zia era, which was comprised of 1977 to 1988. Scheme of the lecture. In this lecture, we will discuss, first of all, we will discuss about introduction, steps against Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, in which we will discuss about the military coup, and after that the death of the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto when he was hanged till death, and it was a punishment by the government. And after that holding of local body elections, we will also discuss about the representation and the local body elections. After that, provisions constitution ordinance. So he introduced Zia-ul-Haq, who was the dictator of the Pakistan. He introduced provisional constitution ordinance. We will discuss about this ordinance also. Formation of Islamic Council and Sharia Court. So we will also discuss about this thing. Establishment of Majlis-e-Shura. He named his parliament and the cabinet as a Majlis-e-Shura. We will also discuss about it. Announcement of Hudud ordinance. He introduced Hudud ordinance in the state. Appointment of Nizam-e-Islat. Ehtaram-e-Ramzan. Definition of Muslim. Revised education policy. Islamization of the financial system. Islamic laws for women. Revised education policy. Islamization of the financial system. Introduction. He was the third dictator of Pakistan after Ayub Khan and Yahya Khan. So it is the main point about the personality of General Zia-ul-Haq, that he imposed dictatorship and martial law in the state. So he became the president after that, and he was the third dictator of Pakistan. Overthrew the democratic government of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. So he overthrew the government of Bhutto in 1977. Took over as Chief Martial Law Administrator on July 5, 1977. So he became the Chief Martial Law Administrator in the history of Pakistan, and it was the third time when Pakistan was facing martial law in the state. Raised the slogan of Islamic system in his first speech as his first priority. So it was the first impression about General Zia-ul-Haq, that he promised to introduce Islamic system, and he implied that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was not in the favor of Islamic system in the state. So that's why he imposed martial law, and he defended his martial law in these words, that he will introduce Islamic system in the state, and it will be the first priority of his government. Second priority was to shift power to the civilians. So after his first priority, his second priority was to shift power to the civilian, and he promised this thing, that he will shift power after some favorable acts and after some kind of the elections, and he promised this thing, that he will conduct elections in the state and shift power to the civilian, and civilian will the democracy. We can infer this thing that he said that such thing, that he will give opportunity to the democratic government to rule. Steps against Bhutto. So first of all, the first thing which was virtually the first priority of General Zia-ul-Haq was to take steps against Bhutto. So special investigation cell was formulated. He formulated a special cell against the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto to investigate about him. Bhutto was held responsible for the murder of Dr. Nazir Ahmed, so it was uh, the cause, and it was the allegation about the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto that he was responsible for the murder of the Dr. Nazir Ahmed. And we can also say that in other words, actually he was considered to be the man who was responsible for the abatement of the murder of Dr. Nazir Ahmed. So he was the first and the last person in the history of Pakistan who was killed and hanged due to the abatement, and there is no rule and there is no section against a man who is responsible for the abatement that he can be hanged due to the punishment. So evidence for the murder of Kasuri's father, so it was also there were also evidence for the murder of Kasuri's father. And on 4 April 1979, Bhutto was hanged to death. So it was the death time of the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto that he was hanged to death on 4 April 1979. 7 members bench of Supreme Court judges. The Zia formulated 7 members of the bench of Supreme Court judges. A large bench was formulated against Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Elections were cancelled. He cancelled the elections, and but he promised that he will conduct elections later on. Journalists were arrested, so as it is the main feature of the dictatorship that they do not allow to speak, and they do not allow freedom of speech in the state. So he arrested journalists who were arrested, and they were not allowed to speak against the dictator, and they were also not allowed to produce any kind of the public opinion. Newspaper were shut, so it was again another step against the newspapers, and it is also the beauty of the dictatorship in negative sense that newspapers can also not write against the dictator, and General Ziaul Haq was doing all these things which are the basic part of the dictatorship. Holding of local bodies elections, so minimize the prestige of elected political elites. So he minimized the prestige of elected political elites who were elected during the era of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and he was in the favor of the people who will be loyal in the during his time and during his era. So he announced local bodies election on non-party basis. So he eradicated the parties from the state, and it was the first time when he introduced non-party basis elections, and in the state these elections were held in 1985, I think so, or it was 1984. So these elections were held, and these were the non-party elections, and it was the first time that when Nawaz Sharif also participated in the election, and he became the chief minister of the state, chief minister of the Punjab. After that, even Sindhi landowning class made their peace with the government. So different other people who were even the feudal lords and different other people from the landowning class became the ally of the government, and they participated in the government. Zia tried to split People's Party in Punjab and Sindh. So he took the elections which were non-party based, and so due to this thing he tried to eradicate and eliminate People's Party in Punjab and Sindh. He tried his best to demolish the future of the People's Party in these provinces, because these provinces were having most population of the state, and so that's why his focus was to diminish People's Party in these provinces. Provisional Constitution Ordinance. He introduced a Provisional Constitution Ordinance because he had already suspended the Constitution of 1973, so he introduced a Provisional Constitution Ordinance to for the working of the government and for the working of the state affairs. After that, Nusrat Bhutto brought a suit protesting the martial law, which was useless, and nobody considered his suit against this martial law. So Nusrat Bhutto was the wife of the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. She tried her best to conduct such type of things, but all of these efforts were useless. Supreme Court invoked doctrine of necessity, as it was the necessary thing. It was just to defend the martial law in the state. So Supreme Court invoked doctrine of necessity just to refuse the suit of the martial law suit against the martial law which was conducted by the Nusrat Bhutto. Zia issued Provisional Constitutional Ordinance. So it was the ordinance which was issued and which was improvised in the state, excluded all martial actions from the jurisdiction of the court. So all the actions which were taken by the dictator and by the government were not lying in the jurisdiction of the court, and court was not having any power to go against the government and against the dictator. So all of these things were given in the Provisional Constitutional Ordinance, and the court was working in the boundaries which were provided by this ordinance and by the dictator. Oath of judges of Supreme Court and High Court. So these oaths were conducted and administered just to get the loyalty of the judges which were working in the High Court and the Supreme Court. Several judges refused and resigned due to their responsibilities. The judges who were aware of their responsibility and they were not thinking to get privileges, and they were not in the favor of their dictator, so they refused to take such type of the oath, and they refused and they resigned. The purpose of this ordinance was to avoid conflict with courts. So due to the implication of this ordinance, they limitized the courts, and they just avoided the conflicts which could be conducted and which could be produced between government and the courts. Formation of Islamic Council and Sharia Court. So as he promised that he will introduce Islamic form of the government and Islamic system in the state, so he formulated the Islamic Council and Sharia Court. So it was the first time in the state that such type of court and council was formulated. So Islamic Ideology Council was also formulated during the time period of the General Zia-ul-Haq, and the Sharia Court was also formulated during this era. It was announced in 1979 after the military coup, and after the 2 years of the military coup, it was announced that it will be formulated, and after that council was consisted of ulama. So different ulama of different sects were the part of this council, and they were supposed to discuss the rules and regulations and laws which were the part of the constitution and ordinances, that they are according to the Islam or Islamic ideology or not. So it was the duty of these ulama to describe this thing, to look into the matters of the constitution and legal matters of the state. The purpose of these Islamic Council and Sharia Court was to look into the matter of the constitution and legal matters of the state. So they were describing the values, and they were also discussing all the matters of the constitution, and they were in fact they were making all of those provisions and laws uh, according to the values of the Islam, to bring them in line with Islamic thoughts. So the purpose of this thing was to get them these values and these constitutional values and matters of the state according to the Islamic thoughts. Sharia code was to judge the laws. The purpose of the Sharia code was to judge the laws, and it did so. It was to declare law repugnant if against fundamental Islamic laws. So it was the authority was given to the Sharia code to reject the laws which were not formulated according to the Islamic laws and which were against the Islamic values. Supreme Court was able to hear appeals against the decisions of the Federal Sharia Court. So this such type of the power and jurisdiction was given to the Supreme Court that they were able to discuss the decisions which were taken by the Federal Sharia Court, and they were also powerful to refuse their decisions. Establishment of Majlis-e-Shura, he formulated a cabinet and a council which was advisory council of the General Zia-ul-Haq, but the name of this council was Majlis-e-Shura. It was established in 1980 as advisory assembly of Zia. So it was formulated in 1980 and it worked as an advisory assembly of Zia. It was to act as Parliament of Pakistan. So this Majlis-e-Shura, which was formulated as the representatives of the people, so it was they were working as the Parliament of the Pakistan. Intellectuals, scholars, ulama, journalists, economists and professionals were part of it. So all of these people were part of this Majlis-e-Shura, and they were working as the advisors, and they were also working as to discuss the values and discuss the laws, and they were the working as the legislators of the state. They were selected by Zia. All of these people who were working in the Majlis-e-Shura of the General Zia-ul-Haq, they were not representatives and they were not working as they were not elected. So that's why they were selected by the dictator General Zia-ul-Haq. So they were not the representatives of the people and representatives of the state virtually. Shura was unrepresentative and without powers to legislate. So as it was formulated personally by the General Zia-ul-Haq, they were not having any kind of the power to legislate, and they were not they were considered to be the representatives and they were considered to be the legislation of the state, but actually they were not working in this sense. They were not authorized to formulate any kind of the law. They were not authorized to do any kind of the legislation in the state and the parliament. So because all the authorities were concentrated in the hands of the dictator. It served as tame debating body, so it was just serving as a debating body, but it was not having any kind of the power to legislate and any kind of the power to do any other act in the state. Announcement of Hudud Ordinance, because he was implementing Islamization and Islamic laws in the state, so introduced a Hudud Ordinance in the state, and it was also the part of the Islamization which was conducted by the General Zia-ul-Haq. It was issued in 1977. So this ordinance was issued in 1977. It was against the crimes of liquor, theft, adultery, and qazaf. So these crimes were the part of this Hudud Ordinance, and he described different kind of the punishments for these crimes. These punishments are given below. It was purely implementation of Islamic laws of punishment. So it was the implementation of Islamic laws which were given by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago. So he implemented these Islamic laws in this Hudud ordinance. Following were punishments. So these punishments were attached with the crimes of the liquor, theft, adultery, and qazaf. So the first punishment was fine, amputation of body parts. So sentence to lashing, life imprisonment, death by stoning. So these were the punishments which were the part of the Hudud ordinance, and life imprisonment was and especially death by stoning was the punishment which was attached with the crime of the adultery. So he introduced this thing which was the part of the Islamic laws by the introduction of this Hudud ordinance. Appointment of Nizam-e-Salat, it was for the regulation and implementation of prayers. So to improvise prayers and to regulate the system and implementation of prayer in the offices and different other places, he introduced this thing that prayer is very compulsory in the government and semi-government offices. So he introduced the Nizam-e-Salat in the state. Arrangements were made in government and semi-government offices. So these arrangements were made in the semi-government and government offices for just to introduce this Nizam-e-Salat, and it was compulsory for the servants, public sector servants, to offer prayers, and it was very obligatory and part of the responsibilities of the servants. Educational institutions were also bound for this, so it was also the part of the educational system that they were supposed to offer their prayers during the working hours, like Namaz-e-Zohr was obligatory for the educational institutions, and it was compulsory for them to offer. It was implemented during office. So during office times, actually it was implemented, and the servants were bound to offer prayers during this time period. It was check and balance was also ensured, just to check the implementation of Nizam-e-Salat. A check and balance system was also introduced and ensured in the state and in the institutions. A violation was also treated through punishment. So who was violated this Nizam-e-Salat, he was lying in the punishment. At Ramazan, it was full of instructions during the holy month of Ramzan. So the General Ziaul introduced structure for the Ramazan, of the Ramzan. So he introduced some instructions like drinking and eating was forbidden at public places. So it was prohibited that no one was allowed to drink and eat at the public places when during the month of the Ramzan. 3 months sentence and fine of 500 was announced. So the person who was convicted for of the eating and or drinking at the public places during the month of the Ramzan, it was the lying for the punishment of the 3 months sentence and fine of the 500. Hospitals, railway stations, seaports, bus stands, trains and airports were exempted from this. So these places where there can be a big number of the people, and so that's why there can be patients, there can be children, and there can be other people who cannot be the able to have fast during this month of the Ramadan. So these places were exempted. Definition of the Muslim amended the Constitution of 1973. So he amended the Constitution and he introduced the definition of the Muslim in the Constitution. So Muslim means a person who believes in the unity and oneness of Almighty Allah, in the absolute and unqualified finality of the prophethood of Muhammad, the last of the prophets, and does not believe in or recognize as a prophet or religious reformer any person who claim to be a prophet in any sense of the word or of any description whatsoever after Muhammad. So he introduced this definition just to avoid any kind of the claim to be prophet in the state, and because there was a problem during the Bhutto era that they declared the Qadianis to be non-Muslims. So he described this thing, and he transparently added the definition of the Muslim in the Constitution. The definition of the Muslim was also added in the Constitution. Non-Muslim means a person who is not a Muslim, and included a person belonging to the Christian, Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist or Parsi community, a person of the Qadiani group or the Lahori group who call themselves Ahmadis, or Baha'i, or a person belonging to any of the scheduled castes. So he made this type of the distinction to avoid any kind of the conflict and any kind of the ambiguity about the Constitution of the Pakistan. So he declared this thing that the one who believes in the Allah Almighty and the oneness of the Allah Almighty, and after that the last prophethood of the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is the real Muslim and considered to be will be considered as a Muslim. Otherwise, the one who does not believe in these two things will not be considered Muslim by the Constitution of the Pakistan. Revised education policy. So after different other things, he also introduced revised education policies. He implemented in 1979. So he implemented this education policy in 1979, projection of Islamic teaching and Pakistan ideology in syllabus. So he ensured this thing that Islamic teaching will be the part of Pakistan ideology and different curriculum of different classes. Reading of Quranic passages in Arabic and translation of obligatory. So reading of Quranic passages and the translation of the Quran was obligatory. In civil service and MBBS, extra marks of Hafz Quran. So it was the first time when he introduced this thing that Hafz Quran will have extra marks in MBBS and civil service. Pakistan studies and Islamic studies made compulsory for BA and BSc. Ombudsman was appointed to rectify misadministration of federal government. So ombudsmen were appointed to avoid the misadministration of the federal government. Islamization of the financial system. So it was again the first time that Islamization of the financial system was introduced in the state, and similarities between the decades of 60s and 80s. His policies were similar to his predecessors. So he eliminated that which is forbidden in Islam, adopted that which is enjoyed by the Islam. Original concern was to eliminate interest from banking. Zakat and Ushur ordinance was issued in 1980. 2.5% zakat annually from the bank accounts at the amount above 3,000. So such type of the reforms were introduced in the Islamization of the financial system. So he eliminated, the main thing was the elimination of the interest from banking. So because he was against the interest, and he was introducing Islamic laws, and Islam is totally against the interest, which is obviously which is a part of the banking system, and the banks always are working on this type of the banking. So he eliminated the interest from the banking, and he 2.5% zakat was annually described for the accounts who were having amount above 3,000. Islamic laws for women put forward the theory of chadar or char diwari. So he introduced this thing for the women. Women was flogged for adultery. 4 witnesses were required for rape cases, otherwise it was considered to be adultery. Consensus was not found among the scholars of the state, so they protested. Testimony of women was not equal to man. Women's group feared of such laws. They stood against these laws. So because these laws were very extreme, and there was very laws which were against the women, and the modern women were not in the favor of these laws, so they stood against these laws and protested.